which is also in Latin America, which is looking to strengthen its relationships and grow with Asian economies. But what does that mean for older existing trade deals? Barbara Kotschwar is a fellow researcher at the Peterson Institute for International Economy. She says the Pacific Alliance is a partnership for the 21st century.
Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, as you mentioned, it's 11 countries. Japan will also join the negotiations as of June, and so that makes it a little bit more of an exciting partnership in terms of the economic or the market size. And so the 11 countries that are negotiating include countries like the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, small countries like Brunei, developing countries like Malaysia and Vietnam, and 4 countries from Latin America, Chile, Peru.
The thing that occurs to me is that they're already friends for the most part, and they already do a significant amount of trading with each other. So how would a new partnership benefit those countries?
Well, a couple of reasons. Most of them, they are, as you say, they're friends. They're like-minded countries, which is why they're in these negotiations. Many of them already have trade agreements with one another, and so in that respect, market access is not the big deal. There are a couple of partnerships that are missing from there. U.S.-Japan, for example, don't have a free trade agreement. U.S. and New Zealand don't have a free trade agreement with each other either, and so there is some market access. But if you look at it from the perspective of a country like Chile, which has a free trade agreement with just about everybody that's already in the partnership, and with Japan, which is coming in, market access isn't the big thing. The big thing is writing the 21st century trade rules. And so what these countries are doing is they're getting together, they're addressing modern trade issues. So if you look at countries like Mexico, Canada, and the US, they already have what was at one point, decades ago, state-of-the-art agreement, the NAFTA, which covers just about all market access, and they have a significant amount of trade. But the NAFTA is a 20th century agreement, and so what the TPP is doing is, one, it's recognizing the importance of the Asia-Pacific agreement in terms of trade dynamism, and two, it's updating some of the trade rules.
Barbara, there's a country that's not on that list. I think you know where I'm going with this one.
Absolutely.
Is it odd that some critics would say, hey, this partnership's really to kind of neutralize the exporting power that China has? I mean, is that a fair statement?
I don't think that Chinese officials have expressed interest in joining the negotiations. And the negotiations are on 23 chapters that are relatively wide-ranging and relatively complex in nature. The stance there seems to be to wait and see what happens. Now, China, of course, is engaged with many of the participants in other bilateral negotiations, in the RCEP, the talks with ASEAN. And so even though China is not one of the members, it certainly is a presence.
I was also going to point out, there's that little organization called the WTO that China is a part of globally. And you look at all these different deals that everyone's getting married to each other in terms of the trade, but ultimately the entire global situation is all tied together. And I suppose, what's the relationship that what impact could this have on China's relationships with the existing agreements that they already have?
It would be great if countries like China, India, Brazil, countries that aren't actively participating in these negotiations, would take this as an impulse to reinvigorate negotiations at the WTO. I mean, economic theory will tell you that the first best solution is for everybody to liberalize vis-a-vis each other and not coalesce into these regional pacts. The reality of it has been that things are stalled at the multilateral level. Now, there's a new head of the WTO who seems enthusiastic and invigorated and says that he wants to move things forward. Hopefully, we'll see some movement at the multilateral level. There's certainly a lot of trade gains to be made by going back to multilateral negotiations that include everybody.